everyone, welcome back. This is another glove review. This is a short-term follow-up review for my Infinity Gauntlets from Sparring Gloves. This is the hourglass design on their website if you're looking for it. So this is a follow-up to my unboxing video and my sort of initial impressions in video, in which I mentioned I was really impressed with these because I pretty much bought these for review purposes. I wasn't expecting to use these gloves very often. So this review will sort of go over some of the points that I had mentioned in that video and then go over how are they holding up now. Okay, so I think the first thing to talk about with the glove would be what is my impression of them now. So in the other video I was very pleasantly surprised with them. They're very light, really mobile. And they seem like they had good protection, but of course I couldn't do a durability review of them. So what's my impression now? I still really like them. In fact, they've become my main glove. They're so light and they're so mobile and they're so easy to take on and off. Like I say, until like maybe the Pro Gauntlet comes out or something else comes out for the price, my impression is still the same. I'm very impressed with them. After having used them now for quite a bit of sparring, I can talk a little bit about the durability and the protection, and I guess I'll start with sort of the durability of them. It has only been about a month and about 60 hours of sparring, but that's a lot of sparring, and I've been sparring every Sunday with them, you know, 2 to 4 hours, and then some miscellaneous work with them in between that, and so far they've held up. Everything's in the same place, nothing's shifted, nothing's cracked, nothing's moved, nothing's coming off. So, and the inner glove doesn't have any strange wear anywhere. So far so good with the durability, although it hasn't been a long term, but I think in the short term we can conclude they're holding up. I think the main area I think everyone is most interested in is for durability is the rivets. So rivets can be a problem on a lot of gloves. So on these gloves, there's only a few that are permanently riveted rivets. Okay, the rest of them are all ones that can be adjusted with Allen keys and replaced if needed. And so far, maybe about 2 weeks ago, I went through with an Allen key and tightened stuff up. I only found a couple that were actually loose. And just recently, for the first time, so that would have been last Sunday, after many hours of sparring, this one right here popped out. Now it got hit, so it might have been loose, and it's still loose right now. I got to tighten it up. It might have actually been loose, which might have popped it out, but no threads were broken, and it still works. So I'll just tighten it up, and that'll be that. The only sort of awkwardness when tightening them that you need to note is some of them are locked in place, meaning the bottom part is locked in place. So when you tighten them, they'll actually tighten. Most of them, though, you have to pinch the bottom of the rivet to the plastic with your thumb and then tighten them, and otherwise the bottom part will just spin and you're not tightening anything. So you do have to be aware of that. You might think you're tightening it, but you're just spinning it. So that might be the only annoying part, and the fingers were easy, but it was a little awkward to do these ones, and the wrist ones haven't come loose at all yet, so that's a good thing to note. Outside that, I think the rivets are doing good, and we'll have to see the durability test a year from now. So durability-wise, that's really all I have to say about them. Everything's holding up. If I do a follow-up of these, I'll do it like a year from now, because most gloves really start falling apart and having problems within a year to a year and a half. So I'll make that video if it's warranted. The next area to talk about will be protection. So now that I've actually sparred with them, how protective are they? How do they actually function? And just like my initial review, I'm finding these really protective, particularly for the price. This part of the glove, super solid. You get hit on here, you actually don't sometimes know where you got hit. It's that solid. You just know you got hit. They're kind of like a heavy sparring hoof glove like that. The thumb is protective, okay? So the pieces are protective, but it might move around a little too much. So if you get hit here, this part of the glove can move really easy. And me, primarily being an Italian fencer, not that big of a deal, but I do throw in some thumb work every now and then. And I did get hit on the thumb. one time when I was just coming around, and what happened was this twisted, and then that popped out. So it pops out a little bit, and my thumb on the inside, it didn't get damaged. It was protected from the hit because these are pretty thick, but it twisted a little bit in there, and it kind of sprained the knuckle real mildly. Nothing major, just sort of like it was sore the day after. And I do believe it was from this twisting and that popping out. So I don't know whether this piece here or this thumb cap needs to be longer to stop that from maybe snapping. It might just need to be something that needs to be re-looked at and maybe re-engineered a bit. Outside of that, protection has been pretty good for the thumb, and I think we need someone who does a lot more thumb techniques in order to review this thumb, whether it is really good. For me, and the very little I actually do that, the thumb is perfect. So, perfect isn't the right word, the thumb is good. Other protection on the glove, the weakest part on the glove I think would be this part of the glove with the blade catch and these smaller plastic pieces here. Still adequate. I've been hit there a couple times. Didn't really feel it, but I was kind of like, oh, that part of the glove isn't as strong as the rest of the glove, which is kind of the key word. It's not as strong as the rest of the glove. So I still find it quite protective. The finger caps are very protective, and it's got a really good design feature, which I don't know whether it was designed this way or whether they thought of it, or this is just a byproduct of the shape. So you can see the finger cap is very long, and the glove itself has a really good length here, but it also has that curve to it. What that saves your finger from more than other gloves is sort of how I'll say that. It's not 100% protective, but more than other gloves is it creates space between your finger, the armor, and room for compression if you get hit on top down to the handle of your sword. So I mention this quite often in glove videos with 5-finger gloves. One of the more common injuries is if you have a really strong protection, most gloves, it's very close to your finger. So although the protection is going to stop your finger from being snapped, what happens is it squashes your finger because there's nothing stopping that armor from pushing down on your finger, then pushing down on the handle of the sword. And I'm sure a lot of people with gloves like that have gotten injuries on the bottom of their hands, like it's bruised and your knuckle joints are sore and sort of like inflamed. Anyone who's had compression injuries knows what I'm talking about. These gloves don't eliminate it, but they sure do a much better job than a lot of gloves out there because of this arc. Basically, it gives a lot of room for your finger to move, and the plastic is very strong, plus it's very long, thus you have less of a chance of compression injury. So I've taken a few finger hits, direct finger hits, and so far, obviously nothing broken, not a compression injury, and in fact, with direct hits to the fingers, no pain at all. Like no sort of like shock pain, that sort of like stinging feeling you can get from the other 5-finger sparring gloves. But there's one area which it's worth noting. A couple times I was being goofy, and I don't know whether I was coming up with my hand or someone came down on them, but I took direct shots to the front of them. As you can see, it's quite long here, so your fingertips do have a lot of protection in there, but they can move, and your tips of your fingers can get hit. Now, I think it's going to be very rare if it happens, and it's no part a negative aspect to the gloves themselves, but it is worth noting that if you do take direct hits to the fingers, they do hurt a bit more than anywhere else on the glove. You will notice it, and there is a chance the fingertips can move. And I guess that can lead to a comment of the only other thing I've noticed about like the inner glove with the fingers is that the finger can slip out of the glove. Now when you're holding onto a weapon, it forces your fingers up into the armor, up into the plates. So that's less of an issue. But when you're moving around, your fingers can pop out a little bit. And I think maybe rethinking the rivets on the fingers might fix that a bit. This top one is fine. I don't think you need a rivet in the middle, which would help suck the finger up to the top of the glove, because like I say, I think you want that movement of the finger in there to stop compression injuries. I think maybe rethinking this rivet by moving it up just slightly maybe just like one rivet length up, and then one more rivet, not right on the tip, but somewhere a bit farther down, to keep the tip of the finger real solidly in the glove. That might help for shots that come up this way, and it might also help just keep the glove in a little bit better. Outside of that, I don't have too many complaints about the general design for protection of the glove. I'm sure a little bit more R&D here and there could make things a little bit better, but so far, so good for the glove. Okay, so I guess the final thing I want to mention about the gloves is, did I have to do any sort of modifications? And I've done two. So the first one, I adjusted the cuff. So I ordered the hourglass cuff, which I order on all gauntlets now. They tend to work with any sort of forearm you have. It was a little too long for me. So number one reason why I trimmed it up was to make it a little shorter. But the main reason was, if you look at it when I put this piece on, you can see the rake of it, how much it wings up. So the problem with that was, even holding my hand straight, it was easy to hit the top of my cuff, and you're still missing, even with my forearm pads there, you were still missing me by a good like 2 inches. But quite often I'd be swinging past someone and my wrist would move like this, and they'd completely miss me by about, a good 3 inches, maybe more, and they'd still clip the actual glove. So it gave sort of like, it was deceptive to people. I had to keep telling them like, no, you didn't hit me, you hit my cuff, you hit my cuff. And most people are used to, if you do hit someone's glove, that's a hand hit. It's pretty close to their arm, even if you hit their cuff, because it's a little ways away from it. In this case, you'd be 3 inches away. So I trimmed that down. Since then, I haven't been hit on the cuff much at all. And I think if you needed that extra cuff length for protection, you could probably heat this foam up and bend it down and squeeze it together a little bit more so that it wouldn't get clipped as much. But that fixed that problem for me. The other area was, the glove so far has been super comfortable, and I've had no chafing anywhere except for on my pinkies. And it was both of them in the exact same spot, right on the corner of this knuckle. It took me a couple sparring sessions to figure out what it was. But if you see right here on the inside of these fingers, they have this part that bows down right there. So what was happening was, this part of the pinky was rotating on both fingers while I was manipulating my sword, and it was just sort of chafing and chopping off like the skin. So I'd have to put a bandage on. It was really uncomfortable. It was a super fix once I figured out what was doing it, and all I did was shave down that hump and took some sandpaper after and sandpapered the edges down so it was smooth, and then that solved that problem. So once again, that'll be individualistic, meaning if you buy, this one was custom sized, if you buy a generic one off the shelf or you have a different size hand, you might get chafing in other places. I have not. But once I sanded that down, that fixed the problem, so that might fix majority of everyone's problems. Don't forget, you can just grab sandpaper and just sand stuff down until you get it to be comfortable. So that's about it. That's really all I have to say about the glove. And I think, after 60 hours of sparring, in this short period of time, I still have the same impression. This is now my main glove. I'm using it all the time. I really like them. So I think if you were sitting on the fence about these and you were about to pull the trigger, but you weren't sure because there's not enough people using them, there's not enough reviews, I would say go for it. I think they're a really good glove. They're better than anything I've used for 5 fingers. Yeah, they're not as good as any sort of hoof glove out there, like the Spez Heavies or Superior Fencing's version of that glove. They're not as protective of that, but they're way lighter. You have your 5 fingers free. They're much more mobile. So if you're on the fence, go for it. I'd say order them. So thanks for watching my video. Thanks for stopping by. Give me a like. Subscribe if you haven't already. I would like to grow this channel bigger. Maybe even get some ad revenue starting at one point. Who knows, right? Right now, I buy all of my products on my own, so all these reviews aren't influenced by anything other than my use. So once again, everyone, thanks for watching, and take care.